We have arrived in Jerusalem, historic city which for 3,000 years has had extensive interaction and use by the Israelites and the Jews, and we're going to be spending some time visiting various places in this great city. Most people will recognize the Golden Dome, a Muslim holy site on top of the Temple Mount. You're looking also at this point at the eastern wall. That's both the retaining wall for the mount as well as the eastern wall for the ancient city. And over these next few days, we're going to visit various places in and around Jerusalem and get familiar with this amazing city. We're on the Temple Mount, and the Golden Dome that you see behind me has in many ways marked what is one of the most interesting and contested pieces of property anywhere in the world, I think. The story of this basically is like this. About 1000 BC, David's forces took what was then a Jebusite fortress, but they occupied the ground that was lower or more southern than what you're seeing behind me here. Under Solomon's time, the temple was relocated further up on the mount, and eventually this temple platform became the one that was most associated with the worship of ancient Israel. A lot has taken place in the years since that time, and one of them is that Herod built a massive temple after he flattened out the area and leveled the place. So instead of having a temple mound, there was a flat platform roughly 8-9 times the size of an American football field, and that's the area that we're in today. In the centuries since then, a lot of politics has taken place and made this a focus of both Christian, Jewish, as well as Islamic interests. I have a lot of interest, having been here a number of times before, having taken our daughter Johanna here, about 18 years ago, and this week marks the birth of our granddaughter, first granddaughter, Briella Corinne de Bloch, and I'm hoping one day to be able to bring her here as well. This is the Temple Mount and the Golden Dome. So we're walking around another part of the temple platform area. As we said, it's about the area approximately of perhaps 8 or 9 American football fields. A very large area that was laid out and enlarged by Herod the Great. Herod was always in the pursuit of impressing upon Rome what magnificence his Jerusalem possessed. And one of his ways of doing that was by making this huge temple platform. However, in the centuries since the first century and the destruction of Jerusalem, so much has changed. And one of the most obvious changes is that late in the 7th century, after Islamic forces took control of Jerusalem, which fell in 638, one of the things that was done was the development of the area with obvious Muslim interests. And this sacred area that you're seeing here, which is probably the best known visible site in Jerusalem, was a holy site. It's not a mosque. The mosque, Al-Aqsa Mosque, is off to the side, but this holy site over the traditional location of Abraham's place of a near sacrifice of Isaac, a Jebusite-possessed place in the late 2nd millennium BC. The center of the area, at least, at David, when he took control of the lower Ophel Ridge in the right around 1004 BC. Then eventually the place, the general direction where Solomon moved the temple generation later up from the Ophel. All of these things come together in what is today recognized as the Golden Dome. Now, just a few minutes ago, we were walking on the upper part of the Temple Mount, and you can see the Golden Dome from down here. Let me make some comments about what we're looking outside of that platform or plaza area. What you're looking at directly below the Golden Dome is what's known as the Western Wall. Many people wrongly think that that Western Wall is the former wall of the old Solomonic or even Herodian temple. It's neither. It is a retaining wall for basically the outer part of the platform. The temple Western Wall was retaken in the 67 war, bringing this property around here to be under Israeli control. And on the lower parts, you can see, probably just barely from this angle, people worshiping, and also some of the very oldest of the Herodian stones from the 1st century, Islamic and Crusader, or Crusader and then Islamic stones on the upper courses. And as you follow that wall to the right, you'll see more of sort of a mixed picture of modern, somewhat old, and very ancient stones. And you come all the way down to the end of this temple wall, or the structure wall, and you'll see at the lower levels some of the oldest stones from Herod's time. Very, very politically charged area with multiple claims of interest historically to the area, and more to be seen in the future shots. We're walking along the southwestern wall of the temple support area. And this street level, which was cleared out some years ago, shows us what it looks like to have been walking along a street in the 1st century. Against the wall, we can see burn marks that are under Robinson's Arch. Those burn marks are from the conflagration when Jerusalem was broken into and sacked by the Romans in the 1st century and around the year 70. And as the Roman engineers destroyed some of the upper courses using crowbars to break them down, the large stones, what are known as ashlars, that you can see in the wall, ranging from the smaller ones around 20 tons, some of the larger ones 50, 60, 80, or 100 tons. Those ashlars were knocked down, and you can see some of them left in situ here. Some of them broke up the street itself. And the reason part of it has collapsed is because underneath there are waterways that were collecting water from those times. Along the left side here, we've got structures that were standing in Jesus' day. We're sort of underneath Robinson's Arch at this point, and you can see some of the storefronts that line the front of the street here. And these went along the western wall and up towards the Antonia Fortress, some hundreds of yards further to the north of us right here. We have traveled over to the east side of the Jordan River and come into what's known as the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, country of about 7 million people, occupying the lands opposite Israel, south of Syria, next to Iraq, also to Saudi Arabia. And what we're entering here is the ancient Greco-Roman city of Jerash. This is some of the most extensive ruins in the ancient world. The particular arch behind us here, Arch of Hadrian, dating to his visit here in the 2nd century. And there's more to come, and as you look through the arch and go way down into the city, you'll see the ruins are quite extensive, and we'll describe some of them as we head in there. We're coming through the gate and approaching the main part of the city of Jerash. What we're standing in right now is an early Greco-Roman hippodrome. You can see the central barrier around which the horses would have run. The walls around here, remnants of the seats for people who would have watched. And way in the distance, you'll be able to see the main part of the city that we're approaching slowly as we walk down the street towards it. So as we enter into Jerash, we're into a huge open plaza here surrounded by columns, and we're going to be following along some of the roads, including a cardo. There are actually a number of main roads here, including multiple decumani. Decumanus was a relatively smaller crossroad, and we're going to see some of those, but this is the entrance into the main cardo. Beautiful open plaza, and has seen probably millions of people come through here over the centuries. Jerash had a life not only as part of the Decapolis at the time of the Bible, that region of 10 towns, 9 of which were on the east side of the Jordan, but had a life well into the Islamic period as well. We have come up now the hill from the entranceway that we looked at a few moments ago to Jerash, and following along here you can see the cardo, and typically a cardo was lined with many columns, and people would set up stores within those columns. As you look way in the distance there, if you look very carefully, you'll see an intersection where the cardo meets a decumanus. You'll also see an altar that is there at the intersection, and then the decumanus, one of them at least, follows over to the left, and you can see the columns that mark that. And then you can also see the Cardo continuing from there and going beyond further into the city. As you span over further to the left, you'll see more of the sights of the city, leading up eventually to a temple to Zeus up in the distance there. Marvelous sight, very impressive, and during the Christian era of this city, that was converted into a church usage. As we reach the upper parts of Jerash, we can look back for a view of the modern city and have reached a place where there was a 2nd and 3rd century temple to Artemis. Artemis is well familiar to people who know the stories of the book of Acts, including her recognition at the city of Ephesus. This temple was actually never finished and was later used for various purposes, including for a time even as a Christian church. We have come southward, way down south in Jordan, down towards the Gulf of Aqaba, over to the edge of the Arabian Desert. And we're in a very rugged mountain area that for some centuries, held quite a mystery. Back in the 1st century BC to the 1st and 2nd centuries AD, a group called the Nabateans lived up and down this area of Arabia. And one of the centers of their work was a place that has come to be known as Petra. Petra is also known as the Rose Red City in the Rock. It's an amazing place. As you look around this, you're seeing sort of the first layer of some sandstone-like mountains that obscure what is an even more amazing inner world that we're going to enter and visit. Some of what was going on here was by the Edomites before the Nabateans, but most of the carvings and most of the things that we're going to be seeing in this visit are attributable to the Nabateans. Arab Bedouin groups of various kinds have lived here for a long time as well, but as this has become a national heritage site for the world, it's gained quite an interest internationally, and many foreigners are coming. We're going to enter in here to what's known as the Siq. It's spelled S-I-Q. Siq is a very, very long passageway. You're going to get some glimpses of it, and the Siq that we're entering here is the only way for an individual or an army to enter into the city. It's a phenomenal journey. In it, you're going to see various carvings. We've already seen actually a few tombs on the outside part, and you're going to see a whole lot more in terms of buildings, tombs. Some of the places we're going to be seeing, it's not quite clear what they were exactly, but as you come down at the beginning here, you can see the entrance to the Siq and get a little bit of a taste of this amazing entryway into one of the most amazing cities of the ancient world. Following still along the Siq here. We're probably about a third of the way through it and seeing some of the heights above us, and obviously the popularity of the site as well. Slowly we're descending, getting closer and closer to the end of the Siq, and in a little while we'll come across the absolutely glorious place called the Treasury, nicknamed the Khazna. Whether it was really a treasury or not, that's up for grabs. We do know Harrison Ford has helped to make it famous, and that's where we're headed. See an old water channel along here, probably for catching some of the rainwaters that would come. They wouldn't come often, but when they came, you tried to catch whatever water you could to provide for what was desperately needed in a desert place. And we are now within just 100 or 200 feet towards the end of the Sick. And if you look ahead carefully, you will see the outline of the treasury. An amazing building, hand-carved 2,000 years ago out of living red sandstone. One of the larger of the constructions here, greeting visitors who make their way through here, and beginning the inner part. We've just approached Petra. We're not actually down in the center of it yet, but this is what awaits visitors.
Era tremendo, era molliccio.
Only wood? Vandaag.
Okay, we have entered fully into the bowl. We passed the treasury, come around a corner, and have sort of finished now where the souk runs and are into the bowl with just an amazing array of Nabatean carved buildings in living stone.
Take 2 for 4. Dai.
This is the stage area, as it would originally have been, with some of the lower passageways and decorative columns at the back, as we've seen typically in Roman theaters, and seating for Probably 4,000 or 5,000. Now looking further down into the bowl where the donkey's walking right now. The view is seen from just in front of the Roman theater here. We have traversed the bowl of Petra, had been just visiting up on some of those tombs up on the hill there, have come down what is a colonnaded Roman road from about the 2nd century AD. Stones beautifully intact here, and that road comes down like a decumanus would, down from the center part over to a flank way over here through a gate, and into a part of Petra far into the bowl that is including a number of much more simpler but still very impressive tombs, as you can see in the face of the rock there. I've walked up the stairs from this colonnaded road, and there's a wide staircase. Here's the original staircase on the side. It's in rough condition, but there's a newly faced staircase, and as you come here, you come up, get to see some of the impressive Roman columns. You can see they've been made in sections, coming up to a great temple, 1st century, and very impressive forecourt here that includes carefully shaped stones that were not only shaped for the purpose of the columns, as you see here, but also for the whole platform itself. And we'll come up to these stones that are over here. And they remind you of Giant's Causeway in Ireland. Hexagonal stones. These, of course, are man-made rather than nature-made. And you can see some of the stacked discs from columns that would have been damaged. Some, of course, have been put back upright once again. But some of the ones in the upper part of the temple complex area laying down flat and showing damage, most likely earthquake damage, based on the way the stones have laid down. Earthquakes periodically hit this area and have sometimes been the lethal blow to cities. Other times they set them back, but the cities are rebuilt once again. When the Israelites came northward from Egypt late in the 2nd millennium BC, they would have preferred to have driven directly north and have entered into the Promised Land from the southern Judean foothills. In fact, the local tribes there refused to let them entry. And so they eventually camped, after camping at Kadesh Barnea for almost 4 decades. They moved to the east side of the Dead Sea and drove north. And as they reached the north of the Dead Sea, were able to then make an incursion heading westward, crossing over the Jordan and eventually hitting first at Jericho. What we're looking at here are the hills or mountains of Moab. We're on the east side of the Dead Sea and, of course, the Jordan River as well, getting a bit of a taste of the rough terrain. We're going to scan this looking up from what is the traditional site of Mount Nebo. We're told that Moses looked at the place from Mount Nebo, although can't guarantee that the Nebo he knew was the one that we know today, just that we're in the general area where it took place. What's interesting is we can look from this position and take in quite a lot of what is, in fact, the Promised Land. You're not able to see the Jordan River because it is so narrow. It's only about 15 to 20 feet wide at this point, but it is down in the valley. You can see that in the green marks the Jordan River Valley, a broad rift valley that heads from way north all the way down south into Egypt. We're looking roughly straight westward at this point. If we could see, it was a clearer day, we would see Jericho. And if we were to continue looking and it were a clearer day at this point, we could also look over to Jerusalem. We can't see it at this point today, but if you can see that vague dark ridge in the back, that's the north-south mountain ridge that runs up and down, north to south, along Palestine, and Jerusalem would be located right about the center of the picture here on that ridge from where we're looking right now. If we were to continue traveling south from that ridge and further along what is to our left from this point of view, we'd be able to see Qumran, we'd be able to see the Herodian, Bethlehem, and eventually down to the Dead Sea, although today doesn't permit. It's a very windy area. You can see from the windblown effect of what is happening here, what a rugged place this is. This is roughly the place where Moses would have gotten his only look at the Promised Land. He could look over and see the potentials of a well-watered area, a nice contrast to the rugged hills of Moab that they had been traveling through. That would be as close as he would get, and only 2 of those who had left Egypt, Joshua and Caleb, would be the ones to actually enter the Promised Land. For all the rest, this kind of terrain would have been what they had seen for, frankly, most of their remaining years of life. Mountains of Moab from the viewpoint of Mount Nebo today.